All right, I'm gonna pick this video up on auto-tune. Auto-tune, in my opinion, is the best option to use for your mash tun when you're using a RIMS system. I'm not sure if I want to give an opinion on one vessel. I think it would work the best. I know in at least the 3-vessel system, when you're looking for the most precise temperature management, maintaining a constant temperature, auto-tune would be the best way to go. So in the previous video, we showed self-tune. So I'm going to turn self-tune off in this video. So I'm going to hold this far left button, and I'm going to scroll through my parameters. Make sure I'm in PID. You have to be in PID for auto-tune to work. You have to be in PID for self-tune to work, but PID for auto-tune. All right, self-tune, there it is. I'm going to turn it off. All right, I'm going to exit back out of this. Okay, so your temperature that you're going to be working with, it's important what temperature you program self-tune into. So most of your mashes are going to fall on the low end from about 145 degrees up to a maximum end at your mash out of 170 degrees. So I like to pick somewhere that's an average of that. I don't use 145 a lot. A lot of my mashes are coming in at 150 to 170. An average temperature that I like to set is 160 degrees. That gives a good range that's going to cover most of my brews. So the first thing you want to do, set your temperature to what you're looking for. We've already turned self-tune off. So the next thing I want to do is I just want to press and let up this button. The first thing that pops up is auto-tune. It's turned off right now. And you need to have that temperature set before you start changing things. In here, you've got auto-tune 2, and you've got auto-tune 1, and you've got off. All right, the difference between auto-tune 1 and auto-tune 2. Auto-tune 1 uses 40% of your heating element's power for the computer or the controller to learn its parameters. Auto-tune 2 uses 100% power. Since I'm dealing with a RIMS tube and a mash tun, I don't like 100% power. Even in PID, 100% power in such a small volume inside your RIMS can superheat the water. Now, the controller is smart enough to learn how to deal with it, but why not give it its best advantage and use a gentle heating? So I use AT1. Now when you set that parameter, it's going to stop flashing and that light is going to turn on. Now I've got a couple of things to do. When I close out of that menu, the computer is going to start recording and controlling every parameter. It wasn't doing it yet because I didn't close out of the menu. Before I close out of the menu, I want to set up a couple of things to give it the best chance at really being accurate in what I'm trying to show. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn my pump on. I've got my pump turned on, and I want to show you visually what I look at as far as the flow rate. I might not have mentioned it in this video, but I mentioned it in the other video. I can't remember, I'm shooting 3 back to back. Your flow rate is one of your most important variable parameters that you're going to need to be pretty close on for auto-tune to be as accurate as it possibly can. So I'm going to get up, I'm going to walk over to my mash tun, and you can see I've got water flowing here. All right, so it's flowing through, just kind of barely at a trickle. You know, whatever you think your recirculation rate ought to be, whatever you want to dial it in at, then that's what you want to stick with. If this is what your recirculation rate is, you know, I can hold a quart jar under there and see how fast my flow rate is going through. But for me, I know I can recirculate faster than this. So I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. And I'm just watching visually how it's hitting that Vorloff manifold, and I'm seeing that circle get bigger and bigger. And as it's growing, my flow rate is obviously getting faster because it's spreading out more. And I'm just kind of looking at it to find out what I like the looks of. I'm trying not to let it steam up too much. But you kind of want to remember what this looks like when you're brewing, because your wort is going to be hitting that thing at the same speed as your water is hitting it. And you want to have a kind of a visual gauge for what you're happy with, you know, slower or faster. You know, I can go wide open and it starts splashing all over the place. I'm not ever going to recirculate that fast when I'm actually brewing. So I'm going to turn it down to where I'm happy with it. That's too slow. I kind of like it when the water is really pluming out as much as it can without splashing. Let's see if I can change it a little more. Right about there. That's what I like mine set at. Again, you can measure it if you want to. Take this manifold off, hold a quart jar up there to it, see how many you fill up in a minute or so to get your exact flow rate. You can get a flow rate meter and plumb into your system, however you want to measure it. But you're not going to be doing that on your brew day and actually measuring wort. So I like this method because it's a visual representation of what you're working with. So I'm going to cap my mash tun. That's flowing. I'm going to come back over here to the controller. All right, I'm still set auto tune off. I'm going to change that to auto tune 1. I'm going to close out of this menu, and as soon as I close out of it, I'm going to turn my heat on. All right, so auto tune is working. It's trying to teach itself the parameters that it takes to get up to the temperature that it needs. In this learning phase, you will have some overshoots and undershoots. The controller is basically testing out how fast and how much power it needs to apply to the element to get it to shoot up. Well, when you're doing a mash out step, you do want it to shoot up. You're changing it from 150 degrees to 160 degrees. So it applies a ton of power. You can see that number was skyrocketing there for a bit. Now it's slowing down. It's nowhere near 160, but it's slowly taking its time to get there. Once it gets to 160, while it's learning, it'll overshoot 160. It might go to 161. It wants to test and see how long it takes for it to cool down. So that's where your variables such as your mash water volume, where that matters. If you've got a low volume in there, it's going to cool off faster than it will if you've got a large volume. So your parameters, you've got to be a lot more precise when you're using auto tune than you do with self tune. But when your parameters are set and you know how to use it, it's very good at maintaining temperature. So I'm probably going to pause this video and combine it with the follow-up once my controller has finished learning everything, and I'll show you how consistent and how stable auto tune is. So I'm going to pick up here after the tune light has gone off. Be right back in a minute. All right, so the tune light has popped off. Auto tune is done. And now I'm just maintaining the 160 degrees. So the closer you are exactly to 160, the better it is at maintaining. You can see it's 160.1. It just changed to exactly 160. And that out light is popping on and off. And you would say, well, why isn't it maintaining exactly 160 degrees? Well, that's because my mash tun is not 160 degrees. It's rising ever so slowly up to 160, but the water that I'm pumping into it is 160. This over here is maintaining that temperature. So I know there's about a 1 degree difference in between my thermometer inside the rims tube and inside my mash tun. The mash tun is just a little bit warmer than vice versa. The rims tube is a little bit warmer because that's where the heat is applied. But you can see it's maintaining 1/10 of a degree. It's not fluctuating much more than that, if at all. And as my mash tun temperature stabilizes out to the temperature that I'm putting in, it's going to maintain that 160 degrees perfectly on. I think I forgot to mention at the start of the video, I think I had my temperature, the actual mash tun temperature was about 153 degrees, and I auto-tuned it to 160. You don't want to have your temperature set exactly to what you're auto-tuning it to. You want to give your controller that knowledge of how to heat up a large differential as it goes up and down. It needs to see a mash tun that's at a different temperature than what it's trying to maintain. You want to give it that knowledge of how to heat up in at least 5 degrees. I like to set mine to 155 or 150, and then teach it how to heat up those 10 degrees and then maintain it. But you can see auto-tune, it's working really good. I'm not editing any of this in and out. As soon as the light went off, I started recording, and the whole time it's maintained 1/10 of a degree. Now again, you have to know your variables, you have to know your parameters, and if you're going to vastly change something, you need to run auto-tune again. Auto-tune will not work when you have self-tune turned on. You need to turn self-tune off before you run auto-tune. So I'm going to go back over here and look at my mash tun. It's slowly coming up. It takes time. I've got 8 gallons of water inside the mash tun, but my temperature here is very stable. And that's what you're looking for, so that you're not introducing those stratification layers, really hot, really cold, dispersed throughout. I think I'm going to end that here. If there's any questions, put them in the comments, and I'll experiment and try to figure out if anybody's having any problems. Thanks, guys.